The developer gets more money. Yes, it's true. They get more money. That's what we were trying to say from the very beginning of this whole thing. It's like, follow the money. Figure out why this is happening. Why are people pushing this? It's not for the things that they push on people. It's for the money.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, and that is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're talking about the missing middle. Just when you thought the missing middle was dead, it is crawling back to life with the rare missing middle duplex listed for $1.8 million in the North Highlands neighborhood. Article from ARL Now. Shawn, first of all, Wednesday, May 28th. How is your last week of May treating you?
It's one of those half weeks, right? You think today's Tuesday, it's Wednesday. It was Memorial Day this past weekend. And you know, I was reading this article the other day. It was like, why you feel sluggish going back to work. And it's so true. Yesterday I was so sluggish, not only because, you know, you tried to take some time off, but also because the kids just kept me up all night, man. You know, you get back to the normal schedules. You got to get them back to school. Anyways, tough day back to work. And you know, today is just a rainy, horrible day. And I've got pictures that I got to take tomorrow. I hope it's not raining. You know, trying to get all this stuff done in a short week and with it raining. And that's what people don't think about when you're selling your house. Like, do you want to take pictures when it's raining outside? Typically not. And so, like, you got to look at all these schedules and try to get it in, you know.
Now, are you rescheduling those photos if it does rain?
I don't know yet because I've already rescheduled them because my clients wanted to change the staging. So, you know, it's always a rush to get these things on, paint it, stage it, get it done. And then you get it done, you send them a video and they're like, the staging, maybe we should add a little more here. Maybe we should change this room into this, you know? So it's like, you never know what's going to happen. And so we actually delayed to take the pictures because they wanted to change the staging. So now we get into this week, which is a short week. It's harder to get the photographers. It's raining. And now I'm like, all right, what are we going to do? And we're going to go on late too, because I can't get the pictures till Thursday.
Do you ever do the bit where if you're going to list in January or February, you take photos in like May of the year before?
Yeah, I never do that, but I have had clients say, hey, I have great pictures from the summer, from, you know, when it's blossoming and the backyard looks beautiful, of course. Yeah. But I think seasonality matters, and trying to list a property that looks like it's summer when it's winter, it's kind of weird, right? So I like to be in the season that I'm selling in.
All right, let's get into the article from ARL Now. And to bring you up to speed on missing, I guess we're calling it missing middle again. We were calling it expanded housing options. Now it's back to missing middle. I don't really care either way. Basically, missing middle was approved for Arlington County, where you could open up the zoning. And then Arlington homeowners, I guess, filed a lawsuit, and the lawsuit stopped all missing middle permits. So you couldn't finish. You couldn't build any more missing middle. And then there was, I'm going to get the word wrong, but like an injunction or like a court ruled that if you were approved for missing middle and you started the construction or were in some sort of phase, then you could complete that project. So there weren't many completed projects, but there are a few, and this is one of them. It is a duplex listed just north of Rosslyn, think like north of 66 in that buffer between, what is it, Spout Run, George GW Parkway and 66,
okay, yep.
29, sort of up there. A duplex, semi-detached, 2 properties listed for $1.8 million, the rare missing middle duplex. First of all, Shawn, what goes through your head when you see missing middle duplex listed for $1.8 million?
Oh, just a mess. It's a mess, because if we go back to like the beginning when this all happened, and the reason, you know, the missing middle was agreed upon, I guess, by the county board. All right. And they kind of pushed this through, but they didn't really get a consensus from the public on whether they wanted this, you know, whether the public wanted it.
Well, they got a consensus from a very loud, do I say minority? Just like a very loud group of people. Now, the very loud, I call them a minority, the very loud group of people would probably show you studies and surveys from people in Arlington County that said, hey, a lot of people wanted this. Hey, a lot of people are renters in Arlington, and hey, this is going to, help with affordability and bring down. And the whole missing middle was, you have apartment, multifamily, big building over here, and then you have, a single family house over here. We need something in the middle.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, at the very beginning, there was a lot of different things going on. Like, oh, it's affordability, right? Like people thought it was affordability. Then it was like racism, like they were bringing racism into it. They're bringing everything into it. And it was like, listen, let's just go back to figure out what the reality is. What do we need in Arlington? And so that's why they changed it from missing middle to EHO, expanded housing opportunity, because it became like this racist thing. It became like, and it was a mess. It was a mess. So again, that loud group of people pushed, I don't know. Anyways, they got this thing pushed through. But then the homeowners that actually lived in these single family areas that own property where these EHO properties were going to be put were like, hold on a second. Like, I just bought this house and I expect a single family home to be next to me because that is how this neighborhood has been. And now, I feel that my property value is going to go down because now there's this new project going on that could be condos. It could be a townhouse, depending on the size of the land. And what does that do? It clutters up your street with cars. There's a lot of things against it. All right. And so there was the people for affording housing to people that, one, was affordable, is what the main thing was, but we don't even know if that was it, or its size, right? We need smaller sized places because everything that's going up is these, quote, McMansions, right? And who can afford those McMansions? And not a lot of people. So that was kind of the push. And the pushback was the single family people that owned there. And they said, wait a second, I don't want a townhouse next to me. This is a beautiful neighborhood. Why should I vote for that, right? I feel like it's bringing my property values down. But in the end, you always got to follow, in my opinion, this is my opinion, you follow the money. Where is the money going? How is this actually happening? And, if you look at tax values, your tax value has gone up because, before you had a single family house on this property. Now you have, say it's 2 townhouses. Well, those 2 townhouses are now worth a combined total of $3.4 million, whereas a single family home would be worth $2.4 million, right? So you have $1 million extra of taxable value there that's going to the county. So that's one thing you have to really think about is, all right, well, where is the money going? It's going to the county, number one. And then number two, now these builders can build 2 properties worth $1.7 million a piece, which is $3.4 million. They're making more money on a project. Yes, it might be a little bit more expensive to build, but in the end, they're yielding more money, and they're yielding more money for themselves and for the tax basis. Anyways, now you got something. Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to jump in, and I'm not really surprised that it's a $1.8 million townhouse. I want to look back at our 2022 podcast. I feel like we predicted this. I feel like, the thought was, hey, it could be a 2.5, it could be a $2.8 million house, or it could be 2 $1.8 million townhouses smack dab, right next to each other. And then the question is, all right, well, who is this actually helping? Everyone's talking about affordability. Are we going to puff up our chest and say, hey, look what we did. We did it. It's $1.8 million. It could be 2.5. Proponents of missing middle are saying, hey, well, actually, they always start the sentence with, well, actually. Well, actually, there's a single family house that's $2.5 million a couple doors down from this, right? A couple streets away. So this is actually cheaper than that. Okay, yeah, it is. But let's not pretend that, this is like a policy success. Yeah. This 1.8, this was never the model of missing middle. I mean, missing middle was, hey, let's figure out, $600K to $1 million, that meat of the market, which honestly would be condos. And then if you're at, I can't even remember, is it a 6-plex? Is that the highest for 6-plex? Let's pretend it's the 6-plex, which was the highest that was approved. That would be like the worst condo ownership. You ever see these like 6-unit condo buildings? I mean, you don't have to go far, right? Go across the river, look in DC, look at all the horror stories there are from these darn row homes that are converted into condos. The roof goes out, everyone owes $20,000. The developer's now bankrupt. Things aren't the way it should be. So that's probably the worst type of missing middle. Thankfully, we haven't seen that, but I'm hesitant to call this a success. I'm not my heels aren't dug in on either end of the spectrum here. I look at this and say, all right, it's a $1.8 million townhouse. I mean, should this be it's also in North Highlands, which not a lot of people know this neighborhood. Now, ironically, it's actually closer to the courthouse metro. It's like a 17-minute walk to the courthouse metro, so you don't really think walkability. It's a 20-minute walk to Rosslyn. I think I'd rather there be townhouses in this part of town, but it also means I'd rather there be $1.8 million townhouses than $2.4 million houses.
Yeah. Does it say how many square feet this is?
It's about 2,400. They're 4-bedroom, 2370, 4-bedroom, 2370 square feet, 3.5 bath, 3-level townhouse.
That's still a big property, right? I mean, 2,370 square feet for right in the middle of Arlington is a pretty decent sized property.
You could live there for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right? You could start there single. You could grow a family there. I mean, 2,400 is plenty of space. My wife is always looking at these, McMansions that are 7,000 square feet. Who needs all that space? Hey, here's a great option that's a lot cheaper. However, since it's in Arlington, since it's in 22209, since it's new construction, and you're probably going to get a backyard, it's going to come with a price tag of 1.8.
Yeah, and anywhere in Arlington is going to be a price tag. It doesn't matter if it's north south. It's going to be pricey because it's Arlington. Everybody wants to be here. It's a competitive market, and so if price was the goal, it's going to be hard. Even new condos, 1-bedrooms. If you saw a new condo right now that was being built, a 1-bedroom would be $560,000. Like that's the reality of it. This is cost of build, it's cost of land, and that's the reality. It's really difficult to build something new in a metropolitan area that is, people want to live in and make it affordable.
There are some new condos. You mentioned new condos. There are some new condos coming to North Highlands. You know about these? It's on Route 29, Langston Blvd.
Okay, and that's a good spot to build them. I mean, if you want affordability, if you want a little bit more.
Okay, I guess it depends on what lens you're looking at. I think it's called and if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put up the screen. It's like the old Air Force office building or something like that. I believe it's 29 and Oak Street. So there are plans for a new condo building. So we're starting to see, the development go a little bit further out from Metro because you're talking about condos north of Route 66, which is, historically less walkable. So, that's one thing to consider. Going back to the article, we're talking about kind of this pendulum swinging of, they're allowed. The judge said this, the judge said that. There is a shocking amount of disclosure that is needed for a property like this. So let's see. For the property on North Troy Street, this is listed by Barry Seymour of, Advantage Properties, INC. You have to put the following status. To potential purchasers, please be advised that there is a lawsuit on appeal to the Court of Appeals of Virginia and then perhaps to the Supreme Court of Virginia that may void your zoning rights to this property and may result in your right to live in this property being eliminated. Holy cow. Now, the agent doesn't put that in the MLS remarks. I don't think that's an issue because I think what will happen is once you sign a contract, you are going to have this language in the contract somewhere. It's gonna say, hey, developer, buyer waives all rights against developers, some sort of legalese like that. Shawn, when you're advising your buyer client and you see verbiage like this, what goes on in your head?
This is my opinion and this is my advice, but don't go near it. I mean, that's personally what I would say because, listen, there is too much, you have too much risk in this. And yes, this lawsuit could go away and you could be fine, but paying $1.8 million for a property that and the other thing to think about is when you buy a property, there's title insurance. There's owner's title insurance and lender's title insurance. Lender's is required. It covers the loan amount, but owner's is not. And owner's title policy, the thing that you're going to run into, the problem that you're going to run into, I think, on this is lending. Who's going to lend based on that property if you probably cannot get title insurance on it with that language? And what the owner says is it's a cloud on his title. It really is a cloud on his title. And if you have a cloud on title like that you can't clear up, then I'm not a title insurance expert, but I would believe that this would be very hard to get title insurance on. And therefore, the lending is your lender is going to say, well, if you can't buy me a title policy, then I'm not going to lend on this property. So it's going to have to be a cash deal, and probably, or one of these ones you're going to pay a super high interest rate on, and you're probably not going to be able to get owner's title insurance. And sometimes owner's title insurance, you're like, do we need it? We buy it over and over and over again, and it's expensive. It's a few $1,000s per transaction, depending on the price point. But for this one, the title insurance, the insurer of this property, of the title, is probably not going to insure you, or it's going to be super expensive. So again, it's like this, and I feel bad for the builder, because the builder has been put in this position by Arlington County.
They did everything right.
They did everything right. And now, and I said this from the beginning, it was like, listen, all of these builders that are going after this, that are getting these approvals, and knowing that the public isn't really happy about this, and then there's this fight. I mean, you have to be on the side of the builder on this. And like, listen, you should approve this. You have made the mistake. Make it right for these builders that you have approved, and get these few properties that were approved, get them through. That's the only thing you can do. Or else, Arlington County, you buy the property from them, right? At market value. That's the only way you can do it. And then you deal with it, because you made the mistake. That's my opinion. So
here's the worst possible scenario, is that the courts invalidate the zoning approval, which would mean the property technically violates the zoning code, which means that you may not be allowed to live in the home at all, which would mean that lenders would refuse to finance, which could require you to demolish or remodel the structure to bring it back into compliance. So ultimately, you could buy a $1.8 million house. You can't live in it. You can't resell it. You can't get your money back. And then you may owe more to fix it or remove it, all while paying mortgage, taxes, and legal fees.
What a mess.
That's like worst possible scenario. I don't see that happening, but also we're not, this isn't a lawyer podcast. We're not lawyers. So, this is not advice, but if we're advising our clients, I mean, what sort of person would even consider buying something like this?
No, I mean, I personally wouldn't.
Nothing against North Highlands.
Yeah.
Here we go. I don't think anyone is like hoping and dreaming to live in North Highlands. I don't think this is like anyone's dream house. Man, this is brutal. I'm just like,
hey, be brutal, man. You're the expert in the area,
like,
right? I mean,
it looks like great property. I want to go to the open house. I don't know if they're having an open house. I want to check it out. It looks great. I don't think with the amount of risk that you're weighing, I mean, if you're in the market for, what else can you get for 1.8? Let's do this, because you can get Rosslyn Key, okay? Townhouses right on Oak Street, 6-minute walk to the metro with an elevator for 1.7.
Yeah.
Okay, that was built in 2016.
Those are nice properties. You
get 4 floors right now. Mm-hmm. So, you get an extra 4. I don't think they're as large, and as new as this one. But I don't think you should be putting all your eggs in the North Troy Street basket.
No. And is there a 1-car garage or a 2-car garage on that?
I knew you'd be asking about parking. Yes. Shawn's always parking. Like, well, where can I park my vehicles? my cars, all my cars. I need all my cars. I will. a 1-car garage completes the package, offering both convenience and security.
Yeah, a 1-car garage. I mean, most people that are purchasing these properties, it's so hard, because there's so many different buyers out there. But if it were me purchasing, I'd want the one right in Rosslyn, right? Walk to Metro. I'll pay 1.7 for that. Why would I pay 1.8 for this?
Guess what? That's a 2-car garage.
That's Rosslyn. A 2-car garage and an elevator in Rosslyn. So yeah, you're in a neighborhood. If you want to be in like the neighborhood, I don't know exactly where this is positioned in that neighborhood, but it's more of a single family home.
Honestly, cul-de-sac, walking distance to a community center. So I'm ragging on it a little bit.
Yeah, that's good.
It looks kind of cute.
There you go, Matt. There you
now, you might get some noise.
Span out a little bit.
Yeah, of course. You might get some noise from 66, from the Parkway. Mm-hmm. Looks like kind of a cute street.
Yeah, it does. I have to agree. So it's a nice, quiet little area. Yeah, you could walk to Metro, but that's not why you're buying this. You're buying for the quiet cul-de-sac. Quick livability.
So quick into DC.
Quick into Rosslyn, quick into everything from that location. So it's good location for a lot of reasons. 1.8 million, cloud on title. That's going to be a tough one, man.
The developer wins again, right? Is this another story of the developer winning? Arlington County making a change, hearing from a loud minority, placating the renters, and then at the end of the day, the money flows to the developer.
Will it, though? Will it in this instance? Is he going to sell these? That's the problem.
We're talking, hey, it's 1.8 and the developer's going to get money, but what if it doesn't sell for
That's
1.8?
the thing is he took the risk. 1.8 in reality, if this was legal and everything was good, yes, the money was at the developer and the tax basis. 1.8 times 2 is 3.6 million. Otherwise, it would be 2.4, 2.6 million for a single family. So there's, again, $1 million of tax basis that you're increasing for the county. That's one reason that they wanted it, right? They want to be able to spend more money on whatever they want. And number two was, what was my other point? I can't remember. The developer. The developer gets more money. Yes, it's true. They get more money. That's what we were trying to say from the very beginning of this whole thing. It's like, follow the money. Figure out why this is happening. Why are people pushing this? It's not for the things that they push on people. It's for the money, and that's really, but now this developer put his money where the mouth was, and the mouth is closing, right? And it's like, this is bull.
But you say follow the money, and the people that are pushing for it, end up getting the money. But the people that were pushing for it are the renters, are the people that need the affordability, that want the affordability, are wanting like the fourplex, the quadplexes, and the sixplexes, and the $750,000 places, and the townhomes under $1 million. So there is a little bit of like cognitive dissonance of the affordability people are pushing the narrative, but then they're actually helping out the person that they hate the most.
Yeah,
did I get that right?
It's so funny. Yeah, it's the truth. The renters are pushing for it because they don't own anything right now, and if they owned a single family house, they would understand why the single family people were mad. And me being a person that worked my butt off to get to where I am to own a single family in Arlington, I understand what they're saying and why they were like, man, I wish it was affordable. Because, the first property I bought was not in Arlington. Why? Because I couldn't afford it. And that's the reality. It's always been a little bit more expensive than the surrounding areas because it's a great place to live. It's got the metro right here. There's a lot of things about Arlington that make it pleasant and make people want to live here.
And the sales prices reflect that. So,
yes.
Shawn, so as we're wrapping up, by the way, drop a comment down below if you're enjoying this conversation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Where does Arlington go from here? Right now the ball is in Arlington's court, the board's court. They said they were going to appeal. They're probably going to appeal. I'm not asking for you to break down what that appeal is going to look like, but certainly there are some lessons that have probably been learned over the past 2.5, 3 years since this was approved and then disapproved. So what are your thoughts on the next steps for Arlington?
Oh man, next steps for Arlington. I really don't know. I mean, the thing is, if you try to pass this again, you have to go to the public. You have to get a public opinion. And if the public opinion isn't there to support you in what you want as a board, then you have to do what the public says. That's why you were hired or why you were voted in, to do what the public says. And if the majority of the public is saying, no, we don't want this, then that's what you got to go for. If they're saying yes, they want it. If they're saying yes, then they want it, then push forward with your legal basis of trying to push this out and get it approved again. If that's what the public wants, then that's what Arlington County wants, and you should approve it or disapprove it. So if the public is saying no, or right now, and it feels like that's why this whole thing was pushed up and the lawsuit was filed, is because most of the majority of the single family owning people said, no, we don't want this. Then you kind of have to put your tails between your legs and say, well, listen, we kind of lost this one. Now, how do we make this right for the people that we have affected? Number one, you've affected the homeowners that live next to this project that maybe didn't want it. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. So you've affected them. But now you've got property that was built that doesn't go along with the zoning that is there. And when you try to abolish zoning, it becomes a mess, right? There's zoning for reasons, and I think it's worked good for the entire lifetime of our union. It's worked well, right? For the most part. I don't know everything about everything, but
you're about to open up a big old can of worms saying that zoning has worked.
Okay. I can't say that. I will say that in Arlington, there is zoning for different areas. And, in right around the metro, it's zoned for, residential high rises.
Can zoning change over time?
It can, but it's got to be public. It's got to be voted on the right way, right? It can't be pushed. And that's my point. Yes, and it has changed, and we've seen it change in Arlington, and it had to change in Arlington, and it was a good change, and there were a lot of people against it at the time, and like you said, with 66 coming through, and like people were like, no, we don't want this. Well, now it's changed, and now everybody likes it, and so change is good in some instances. When it's pushed down your throat, sometimes it's not. And so what should Arlington do? they should buy the properties. I'm sorry. Like, I think
They should buy these duplexes.
If they can't sell on the market, they should pay what market value is for these properties, and then they can figure it out in the end.
And then make them affordable. And then the neighbors how would the neighbors feel about that one?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I think all my solutions to missing middle would get the county sued, right? Because I would want, I've talked about it before, I would want corridors of hey, George Mason, we really don't need 7-bedroom houses, across from the hospital on George Mason. Maybe we could do some row homes there, some townhouses there.
Yeah, that's where it makes sense.
But I think there's some issues with, okay, well, if you pilot the program in a certain neighborhood, oh, well, now you're doing it because X, Y, and Z, and we're going to sue you. Mm-hmm. So many of this, you gotta run by the attorney and, make sure everything is above grade here.
It's a tough one. It's a mess, but hopefully it gets resolved where the builder doesn't lose too much money, or at least makes his money that he was thinking of making, and we can move on from this.
Yeah, this would be fascinating to watch. I know in my parents' neighborhood, there's a house that was going to go missing middle, and then they just ultimately built the biggest house that you can imagine on the lot.
Yeah,
so,
well, I mean, it happened right here.
Yeah.
I sold the house, right? Yeah. So it's funny because this house, one street over from me, we got a letter that the builder was going to build a duplex. And everybody in my neighborhood was against it. I mean, every single one that I talked to.
Why did they send that letter again? Why didn't
because
they
said because they kind of knew it wasn't,
because a deed from 1930 said that they couldn't.
One single family home per lot. Our little neighborhood, you got to look at what they actually say, and this one was different, and they knew it. They caught it after the fact, I think, and they said, "Hey, in our opinion, this is what we are allowed to build." And the whole neighbor was like, well, in our opinion, it says one single family home. So what did they do? They said, okay, we'll build a single family home. They built a single family home. I sold it. So my client's in there. So, which is amazing. And I told my client the whole scenario of what was happening, how it was, how much they paid for the lot, why they paid that much, blah, blah, blah.
Shawn, the neighborhood expert. Do you think if they didn't send that and then just bulldoze through,
I would have been a mess.
Do you think someone from the neighborhood would have pulled the deed and then been like, well, actually,
we got a couple lawyers from that, yes, it would have happened. They would have not been able to do it. There would have been a stink, and you know what? It would have taken longer. The builder would have lost more money. So just do what's right and go by with what it's saying in that deed. And if it says it, cool. If it doesn't and the Arlington County approves it, remember, you've got to go through Arlington County approval process. Man, I'm hearing so many horror stories that this is taking way longer than expected. I mean, there's houses that are just a year and a half later. Oh, I finally got approval. Like Shakufa has a South Arlington project that she said it took a year to get approved. One of our agents has a house in South Arlington that was just a rehab. They're keeping the footprint, but they're building something else. And so, yeah, it took a year. So think about that if you're thinking about investing and rehabbing a property. It takes a long time in Arlington.
This is going to be a story that we're going to be following, so be sure you're subscribed so you stay up to date on the latest findings with this property here in North Highlands. And for Shawn and myself, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.